So we are at stanza 129, ninth chapter of Bodhicharyavatara. We have been discussing the little bit the philosophy of Sankhya and basically a philosophy that believes in permanent causes and not necessarily a creator, and that permanent cause of everything is this prakriti, which is a kind of a prime substance, which is with three qualities, or three constituents of pleasure, pain, and neutrality. And that is something that is material, although it cannot be seen, and that's the, from there all the everything is created, or everything arises. And so therefore we already said that if these three are, if that prakriti or prime substance is something which is one and permanent, and then having these three constituents or three qualities would not work, because if you have three qualities, then it is not one. And it is also, especially if these qualities kind of gets disbalanced or balanced again, or this some qualities become more coarse and sometimes more subtle, and then that is not something permanent, something truly existing, something one. So therefore, it becomes that this primary kind of substance, which is totally, permanent and one that doesn't exist. So therefore, then all these three qualities that it has, when thing is not there, then its qualities or its constituents cannot be existing also. So if these qualities don't exist, then its products, like all the other different things that it produces, like sounds and things, everything, that cannot be there, cannot produce. So therefore, it is said three natures in a unity are dissolved. This unity therefore cannot exist. These qualities likewise have no existence, for they must also be assigned a triple nature. Now 29, if these qualities have no existence, a thing like sound is very far from plausible. Something like sound cannot happen because, at least cannot be produced by that prime substance. And cloth and other mindless objects cannot be the seat of feelings such as pleasure. So the cloth and everything you say is coming out of this prime substance, which has its three qualities all the time there. And these three qualities is this can produce all the things because the kind of cause, the result is in a way already there in the, in this prime substance. That's why, when you debate, it becomes, this philosophy comes to, little bit present that the cause is already present in the, or the result is already present in the cause. So, therefore, when the cloth and other mindless objects cannot be the seat of feelings such as pleasure, but they say that, the cloth, a nice, beautiful cloth, can make us feel pleasurable because the pleasure or the, is already there in that cloth. So here, from Buddhist point of view, how can that happen? Pleasure cannot produce a cloth, for instance. Because the pleasure cannot be, it's something that is to do with our mind, that we experience, and that we experience pleasure because if we touch something that is, that we like or we feel, not the object itself is producing, the pleasure is not already there, it's not possible. But you say these things possess the nature of their cause. But have we not investigated things already? For you the cause is pleasure and the like, but from pleasure cloth has never sprung. Sem kula sopala desuya pa sapauman. Nonam teju ronyana mupo nausi seminam. So we already, discussed these things before, our pleasure is not on the cloth or on the object, nor on the mind, things like that. We already discussed these things before. Chuji Ngunam teju royana, ngupo no shisama, chuji jiyo desunya, teli no sun juwa ume, no solina desunya, temeshana desume. And the comfort or the pleasure arises because, because of my body, because of my sensation, and then I touch something, and that touch, because of my, my own kind of habitual tendencies, or my own way of seeing, or my own way of inputting, or what we call karma, then we like that sense of touch, and then we say this is pleasure, or this is, not pleasure, or whatever. So we already discussed these things. So if if we have, if there is a kind of cause as a result, a relationship between the pleasure and the object of the pleasure, like the soft cloth, then the soft cloth is going to generate the sense of pleasure, not the other way around. But you say these things possess the nature of their cause. But have you not invented things already for you? The cause is pleasure and the like, but from pleasure clothes have never sprung. Pleasure rather is produced from cloth, but this is non-existent. Therefore pleasure likewise. As for permanence of pleasure and the rest, well, there's a thing that's never been observed. This what happened to no me pa you mai. This was salwa you na niwa ji san zhen mai. Teni chamur chena na ro to cha wo cheta. Ro pa to ne cha je we tara te da ma ta. Te yin gu po tam chena ma ta ni de ji me. Ro pa de le yema na de wa sala ma ta. So this is, pleasure, rather, this already we talked about. Pleasure rather is produced from cloth, but this is non-existent. That cloth is, if you look deeply at the cloth, there is nothing in cloth where the pleasure is, or the cloth itself is not truly existing. So it is not that something is truly existing and permanent pleasure is there, which gives rise to cloth or anything like that. And in a way, pleasure itself is also, we talked about this before. There's nothing called pleasure permanently existing, truly existing, which is a very transient, and it just comes because of many causes and conditions, but if you look at its true nature, there's nothing called pleasure. As for permanence of pleasure and the rest, well, there is thing that's never been observed. We never can see, we can never observe a pleasure that is always there, or permanently there, truly there. if pleasure and the rest are true existent, why are they not constantly perceived? So the Buddhists ask, if pleasure or displeasure or pain, etc., are truly existing and permanently existing, and they're totally there in true existence, then why can't we always experience that constantly? Because it's truly existing, and there's no reason why we cannot experience that. If we claim they take the subtle form, so if they said that, there is there, the pleasure is also there, pain is also there, maybe neutrality is also there, but then sometimes it becomes more coarse, and then you experience it. Sometimes it becomes subtle, and you experience other things, but not that pleasure. If you say like that, how can then how can coarseness change, transform it into subtlety? How can coarseness, how can sometimes it becomes coarse and sometimes subtle? So if it changes like that, sometimes it becomes coarse that we can experience, sometimes it becomes subtle that we cannot experience, then it changes. If coarseness is abandoned, subtlety assumed, that means it's impermanent. Such transition indicates impermanence. Why then not accept that in this way all things will have the character of transience, or you can't say this is, this is permanent. You can't say, because it changes. Whether it changes from coarseness to subtleness, or it it arises and dissolves, whatever you call it. Sometimes you experience, sometimes you don't experience. Then it is changing, and when it's changing, you cannot say it's permanent. If you say the coarser aspect is itself the pleasure, the manifest sensation is, of course, impermanent. And what does not exist in any sense, because it has no being, cannot manifest. Now, if you say, that although there is a transient, or there is a change in the coarseness of that pleasure, but the nature of the pleasure is permanent. It's always there. It just, sometimes it's already there and always there, but because of some reasons with us, sometimes we experience it more and sometimes we experience it less, but it is already there. Then that coarseness of the pleasure, is that same as the pleasure or different? So you cannot say that this is different. It's the same. The coarseness of the pleasure is same as pleasure. So if that is the case, that pleasure becomes impermanent or transient or changes, because it is same and one as the pleasure, and that coarse pleasure becomes less coarse or subtle, so it has changed. So therefore, now this is all talking about the permanent thing. When you say something is permanent, then it wouldn't work from logic, because permanent cannot change, and permanent therefore cannot react, and permanent cannot be affected, and permanent cannot affect others also, because then it would react and then it would change. So this is the therefore this is all this are about that. So these last two lines of 134 are, actually it's the main kind of main debate. That is that, and what does not exist in any sense, because it has no being, cannot manifest. So what the Sankhya philosophy says is that if something has to manifest, if something has to have a manifest, like the cause has to, like a seed has to have the fruit. That fruit has to be there potentially, or something, inside that seed. If it is not there, if the seed or the fruit or the result is not there in the seed, then it cannot manifest. The fruit cannot manifest because there is nothing there to manifest. And therefore, all this philosophy of the pleasure is there in the in the cloth, or these are all coming from that understanding that when the seed has to have the result in it all the time. And if that is not there, then, so therefore this philosophy believes in, kind of the cause has to have the result in it. So therefore everything is kind of produced by itself, self-produced kind of. So the result is already, that's the, that's the understanding. So to that, I think I have to stop here. So I'll stop here at the end of 134. Kate mepang kayonis Semen me sirhi nas up to that point. Thank you.